and we're joined by a very special guest, Arash Madani of Sportsnet. Arash, the Jays, they drop another one, 3 straight, losing 7-6 to the Boston Red Sox, allowing 23 runs over this stretch of 3 games. Is it too early in a long season to be too concerned about this right now?
I'm just surprised we're talking baseball on this show, fellas. Hey, it's good to be with you. What's happening today? We're talking baseball. What happened?
Arash, honestly, these guys have been begging for you to come on this show from day one, and I've been saying, no, you don't want him. And then it's finally, okay, we'll do some Jays. You know, it's too much Leafs already.
The answer is no, Albert. The answer is no. And it has nothing to do with the Jays or with whatever is happening. I'm just of the belief, I subscribe to the Sparky Anderson theory that through the first 60 games, first couple of months of the season, just be 500, just be healthy, find out what your team is, and then the season really starts. The Jays are ahead of that. They're a very good team. They have good depth in their pitching. Their offense can ignite at any time. My level of I wouldn't even start thinking about concern if I'm a Jays fan. As long as they're around 500, above 500, I wouldn't even start thinking unless major injuries pile up. And for them, knock on wood, that's not the case.
Arash, speaking of concern and level of concern, George Springer averages down around 216. He's only got 3 home runs. Is it time to panic about George Springer, or should we wait till the 60-game mark as well for the Blue Jays outfielder?
There is literally no need to panic. This guy's got a track record. This guy is, it's a small sample size so far. The weather is miserable, especially in a place called Fenway Park. I was a little taken aback when he overran the baseball down the right field line last night, and it bounced in fair territory and popped out. Even Springer looked at Vlad and said, did you just see what happened there? There's literally nobody on this team I look at right now and say, ooh, I'm really worried. And that's including Yusei Kikuchi, who would have thought that. That's including Jose Barrios. So I just, I understand expectations are high. I understand the sample size is very small. But the least of the people I'd be worried about is George Springer right now.
Fellas, 6 games over 500, and you've mentioned the words panic and concern in your first 2 questions. I apologize, Arash. These guys have been beaten down.
Man of wisdom, listen to you. All
right, are you ready for this?
All right, let's go. Let's hear it.
Listen, Arash has been after me for baseball talk for a long time, and here it is, finally. All right, so let's turn it to some positivity here, shall we? All right, Bo Bichette, you've been around this team for a long time up until this season. Arash, you've seen Bo evolve from the kid to what he is today. I know in last night's game at one point, his bases loaded, Vladdy's on deck, and they pitch around Bo to get to Vladdy, just showing how good this kid is nowadays. Are you surprised by what he's become?
Just hold on. Before we get to that, Sharms, just think about what you just said. They were willing to walk Bo to get to Vlad in real life. In 2023. And then what does Guerrero do? He lasers, 2-run RBI, first pitch he sees. It's, we had heard so much about these kids from the time Guerrero signed as a free agent kid out of the Dominican to when they drafted Bichette. And don't forget that, Craig Biggio's son, that Kevin Biggio was coming up, and they all came up together. But I think what really stands out to me about Bichette is his supreme focus every day. And he'll admit to you that in his first couple of years, he rode the roller coaster of results and kind of rode the highs, and, some of the slumps got to him. But this is somebody who has truly, truly been a pro from the jump. And he's just evolved and refined what it takes to be an elite pro at this level. I mean, when you talk about preparation, when you talk about the mental fortitude, when you talk about understanding situations, understanding the game, understanding himself, understanding the clubhouse, Bichette checks so many of those boxes. And I can't think of many athletes in any sport who, after not the best April, May, June, July, August, then have one of the most incredible Septembers in the history of the big leagues. And for Bichette to be able to do that after 5 months where things weren't going his way, to then have a September to remember at such a young age, that to me speaks volumes about the makeup of this kid and what makes this kid tick.
We're speaking with Arash Madani of Sportsnet. So, Sharms, we're going to continue with the positives, right? No more
Yeah,
panic, no more
negative.
concern.
That's ridiculous.
Okay, let's talk about Chapman then. Awarded the AL Player of the Month. We all know about his glove and how good he is at third base, but the adjustments he made, in the offseason and spring training to his what he does at the plate have been paying off, obviously. I'm not sure if these numbers are sustainable, batting 374, top of the league in doubles, but what are your expectations for him as the season goes on?
There will be a time where Matt Chapman is not going to be hitting 300. I promise you that. But my expectation is going into a free agent year that Matt Chapman's monster year is going to continue. And it's funny, like we're talking about while they were in Boston. Last year we were there late-ish summer, and he made an incredible defensive play. And I remember speaking with him in the dugout the next day, and he just said, this year hasn't gone the way I wanted, and it's nice to make a play like that so guys on this team can understand I can actually play some defense. Like, he holds himself to such a high regard or a high expectation, not a high regard, that he wants to hit that every time. And look, as you guys know, year one as a free, as a trade free agent coming into a new situation as a vet, you have a lot to prove. Dalton Varsho has been the latest to have to go through that. Look, his April's been incredible, but I don't know about you guys. I truly believe that Matt Chapman has the capability this season, ahead of Bo, ahead of Vlad, ahead of Springer, ahead of Judge, ahead of name me whomever on the Houston Astros, to be a favorite for AL MVP. Like that's the type of talent we're talking about. That's the type of ability we're talking about, who can do it on the defensive side and they can do it at the plate. And when you have both of those, like, just forget April for a minute, as electric as it's been. But what Matt Chapman can be for this Blue Jay team is the absolute difference maker. To already have been moved into the cleanup spot 3 weeks into the season, that to me speaks to what he is, what he can be, and all of it.
Arash, you're around this team a lot, obviously. What's Chapman like in the clubhouse? I imagine, Vladdy, Bichette are the types of leaders that they have, but is Chapman filling that role as well?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, I think back to last year, Bo was growing more and more into the role, but they were still among the younger dudes in a room. Chapman, as the season went on, was evolving a little bit into that. It's a really interesting clubhouse. Now, Teoscar was a bit of a quiet leader. There was, Springer ran that room from a position player standpoint, if you will. But now, you have a vet like Kiermaier around, you have a vet like Brandon Belt around, you have Vlad coming out saying, I want to be more of a presence. But Matt Chapman is Matt Chapman's a pro. And I remember early last season when Kikuchi was struggling in Boston early in the season, Chapman going up to the mound on his own and kind of giving him a bit of a pep talk. And I spoke with Chapman in the clubhouse after, and he just said, sometimes you just need to remind a guy to just kind of take a deep breath, relax, go about it. He's comfortable enough to do things like that. So I think what you have with this team now are a bunch of dudes who can lead in different ways, and not just by example. And so that can only be a benefit for them going into the summer.
Arash, we got to talk about contract situations with the Blue Jays, especially those three guys we just mentioned: Matt Chapman, Bo Bichette, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Mark Shapiro's been on record saying this team's window is probably the next 3 years. In the next 3 years, do you expect or predict that all three of these guys will still be a part of this roster, or will one guy be somewhere else?
I mean, the immediate answer is you never know. I don't look. Bichette's under contract for the next 3, so that's guaranteed. Vlad's just kind of going about it, and he mentioned to our colleague Shai Davidi that that there was some brief talk about an extension this offseason. They weren't on the same path. I don't see how Chapman's in Toronto next year. I really don't. I think there's going to be a huge money offer coming his way, just like there was with Marcus Semien after the 2021 season. You're already paying Springer, you're already paying Gosman, you're already paying Barrios, and Chris Bassett's getting paid, and the big Bo and Vlad kind of awaits you down the road, and you have to believe that the Guerrero number is going to have to start with a 3, if not a 4. So you can't pay everybody, you can't keep everybody, and this has been a front office that has shown the vet, the older vet, they're not as interested in keeping him around in the field as they are investing in youth. And so that's why Kiermaier got a 1-year deal. That's why Belt got a 1-year deal. That's why Chapman, as long as he was under team control, made sense for this team. The same with Dalton Varsho. So I would suspect that this is Chapman's last year in Toronto. And I would think that priority number 1 is going to be finding a way to make Guerrero and Bichette work however you can figure out a way to do it.
Arash, we've got a couple of minutes left here. There was a time, and maybe 2-3 years ago now, that many a fan would have thought that by now Nate Pearson would have a massive contract, big money coming in. Didn't work out. You were there, right there on the ground. You saw the hype machine around this guy, the circus.
Yeah.
But it didn't pan out. He's back in the bigs now. He's pitching pretty well. Looking back to where he was, how surprised are you to see where he is at now?
Sharms, it's one of the wildest ones, because if you took me back to, say, February of 2020 and say buy stock in one Blue Jay player, it would have been Nate Pearson. So I'm very thankful that I'm losing money in all my investments anyway. So I was in Bradenton. They were playing a spring training game against the Pirates just before COVID hit, 2 weeks before maybe. And the radar gun was reading like 101, 102, and the crowd was oohing and awing. And we went into the locker room after, and Vlad said, "I'm glad I don't have to face him." And Bo was saying the same. Then COVID hits. Then he takes, along the way, a line drive off the forearm. Along the way, he gets mono and sets him back. And then another injury. Look, he's finally starting to look like Nate Pearson. Like, remember, when he made his 2023 debut last week, that was the first time he'd been in the big league since 2021. So if they can rely on Pearson as a 2-inning guy who can come out of the bullpen and really give some velocity and really give a different look, that really changes the complexion and gives John Schneider so many more options of what they can do out of the pen. Because I don't know if they have a true long guy, and because of Pearson's velocity and pitch mix, I just think that he adds such an extra dimension to this team. It almost feels like this was a bonus that has fallen on their lap that they didn't even expect was going to be available to them.